Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. And I'm very excited to have two favorites in the house and a brand new favorite. We are coming together to speak to organizations that are honoring our servicemen and women and veterans. And so with that, I would like to introduce my co-host today, Mike Phillips. Hello, sir.
Hello, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm usually producing your shows, and you're the one, kind of leading the conversation today, but we thought we'd switch it up a little bit today.
It's great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So tell us who we have with us in the house.
Well, we have Victoria Bellissimo. Is that the correct?
Bellomo Versace.
Bellomo Versace. She is representing a couple of organizations today. Victoria, welcome to the show, and tell us who you're with us today.
Thank you for having me this morning. I am here and I'm a board member of Soldier's Best Friend. We are a nonprofit organization providing service and companion dogs to our combat veterans with a host of post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury.
Outstanding. And with us today also is Paula Padine, and she is with the annual Phoenix Veterans Day Parade, which is now a nonprofit. Welcome, Paula. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Oh, thank you, Mike. So Honoring America's Veterans was established in 2011, and we are now celebrating our 25th anniversary of the Phoenix Veterans Day Parade. It started in 1997 under the auspices of the Department of Veterans Affairs. It moved in 2013 to the nonprofit Honoring America's Veterans, and it's our 10th anniversary for our nonprofit. So we hope to honor and recognize our veterans for what they do, the service they have given to our country, and just keep the camaraderie and spirit of that interconnectivity alive.
That's wonderful, and it's great to see that parade grow over the years. Both of you just do such tremendous work in the community and really make a difference. And Karen, thank you for having us all here together today.
Absolutely. And I kind of threw it over to you, and you did really well when I lobbed that ball to you. Hey, introduce our guests. We're like, that's not what we planned before we went on air, but you did it magnificently. And Victoria hosts with Mike our Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation show as well. So we were happy to have you here representing this other organization too, which we're going to spotlight. Before we move on in our conversation about what all of you are doing to support our families and let more people know about the great work that you're doing, would you take a moment to introduce yourself as well, Mike, and speak to the organization or organizations that you come and get to play here at the studio with me every month?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So I'm retired. I spent 14 years as a journalist and 20 years in municipal public affairs. And when I retired, timing is everything. I was just getting involved with the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation through the Marine Corps mural, which is a beautiful piece of artwork in downtown Scottsdale. And so I was transitioning from 40-hour-a-week work career to retirement, and was approached to do some public affairs work with the Scholarship Foundation, and it was a great opportunity. And I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, made a tremendous difference in my life, and I was thrilled to be able to give back a little bit to the service and the foundation, and so that started my path on the nonprofit side. Then was approached by employer support for the Guard and Reserve, which is really probably one of the most significant organizations nobody's ever heard of. It's a part of the Department of Defense, and its job is to support and recognize not just members of our Guard and Reserve, the citizen soldiers, but the businesses and organizations that support them. And without those businesses and organizations having the back of our citizen soldiers, frankly, we couldn't meet our national defense commitments. And so it's a significant relationship that goes on every day in this country. And ESGR was founded to support those relationships. And so that's kind of in a nutshell what I've been up to since retirement a few years ago.
I love it. And I get to, as I mentioned, produce both of those shows because ESGR as well as Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation are here monthly so that we can have them not be the best kept secrets, right? We want to make sure that more and more people get to know your organization. So for our listeners, check out Phoenix Business Radio X and look specifically for ESGR's We All Serve and Marine Corps Scholarship Foundations. I always forget the name of that series. What are we calling that series?
A decade of service.
Yes, I
A
believe.
decade of dedication.
Yes. And we invite in incredible guests, some of which have served in the military. Others are the businesses who are supporting those Guard and Reserve members and really just keeping the conversation alive. So, Paula, let's have all three of you talk a little bit about what is so important. I know, at least for Victoria and Mike, you both volunteer. I don't know if this is a paid role for you, but I'm assuming that you've got to rely on some volunteers in the work that you do. Why is what you're doing so important, not only for our servicemen and women and families, but also our community? And any one of you can speak to that. We've touched on a little bit, but let's do a little deeper dive.
Well, for our nonprofit, it's the camaraderie. I think, when you look at the military, only 1% has, enlisted and sworn to take the oath to defend the Constitution and, all enemies, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And, but when they leave, some leave better than others. Some, especially with the decades-old wars that we've had, a lot of our younger vets have multiple scars and injuries, especially in the Guard, being thrown over there time and time again. So what we have learned, and really out of no intent, was that honor and recognition events really make a difference for them. They really make a difference. We had, and it goes from young to old, we had a Korean War veteran who at the age of 70, became a Grand Marshal in the Phoenix Veterans Day Parade. And he said, Paula, I lived with demons for 50 years, and that parade helped me heal. It removed all the demons. They were just gone. So it's that kind of healing, and it comes from the community, and it comes from an event, and it comes from each other, and it just builds a phenomenal network. The gratitude, I think it's a gratitude that really helps our veterans heal.
Mm-hmm. Victoria or Mike, anything to add from the seats that you sit in as it relates to your organizations? Why is this so important, the work that you do?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, watching the growth of many of the veterans. So in Soldier's Best Friend, when I was approached to join the board, I had to do my own vetting. Like, well, what is this organization? What are they about? Do I know anyone who's used the program? Mm-hmm. So my husband's a Marine Corps veteran, and I remember we have our own law firm, and we would have some of his buddies come in, and they'd come in with these dogs. And I would say to him, this was years ago, and I would say, how's so-and-so? He's like, good. And I'm like, what's with the dog? Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, that's their service dog. And I was like, okay. So didn't think anything of it, and whatnot. And then as time went on, some of his friends would stop by. They'd come for lunch. They'd say, where's the dog? My receptionist would say, where's that pup? He can't touch, you're not supposed to touch him or approach. But, we loved having them. And I'd say to my husband, where's the dog? And he's like, he doesn't need the dog. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the dog's at home. I was like, why is the dog at home? Well, he's doing so much better that he doesn't have to take the dog everywhere. And I thought, wow, that's fascinating that I love my dogs. And I really feel like they provide a lot of comfort and support, but not for what I've gone through. The things that I've gone through are minimal in comparison. But if a dog, an animal, can give you that kind of support and quash the fear of going out and riding in your car, getting out of your car, entering into a public space, how fascinating is that? So years go forward. Again, I'm checking on this organization, who are they, and whatnot. So I call up a couple of my husband's friends and I send a couple of emails and I said, I'm looking to become a part of the board of Soldier's Best Friend. What do you know? 3 out of 4 of them had received their dogs from Soldier's Best Friend, and they had completed our program and passed through the program and had nothing but wonderful things to say. And so right there was my validation. And it said, okay, this is an organization. I've already seen the fruits of the labor of the trainers, the dogs. And most of our dogs come from shelters. They're rescue dogs. So we have kind of our tagline is rescuing the veteran, rescuing the dog. And so saving 2 lives at once. So it was fascinating to me because I was tied in without even knowing it from years past when some of our friends had come back from their tours and their deployments overseas and they had made it through the program. So for me, I think anytime that we can have a service animal take the place of medication, anxiety, stress. I saw one couple, I know for sure they were on the edge of divorce. And I'm not saying that the service animal was the entire, catalyst to stopping that, but I know it played a part in it because they're still together. I just think that that's the best. We have so much work to continue doing, and that's having all of us here, and including you, Karen, for all the work you do with our veterans and all of the programs and allowing us to have this voice here. We have to continue putting them first and center and spending the time, effort, and commitment, to helping those who have served us, and we have to serve back. So I love it. I'm a dog lover. I don't know. Hopefully our audience has dog lovers. But when you see a lot of the service dogs transition to more companion, I could go on. I have a million stories, but that's one of the best ones too. When I walked in a friend of ours' house who could not even be in a public space for more than 5 minutes, he stood in the back and he would leave. I come over, his dog is chewing up a blanket, playing, having fun. And I'm like, what happened? He's kind of chill. Like, where's this? He's like, I'm good. And he knows it. And when I'm good, he gets to play. And if I have a bad night, immediately he's back on and he does his thing and calms me down. And I was like, that is the best thing ever. And I saw it live with my own eyes. So there's a lot of transition that happens. And I see less and less of our friends with their dogs. But then I see all of the dogs in our training program with our veterans at Soldier's Best Friend. So there's tons more out there. Lots more veterans that need, to match their dog and get their training. But as they make it through the program and as things get, for most of them, better, lighter, that's great. Some, you'll see them with their dogs all the time, and that's great too.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Before I asked that question, you had prompted me with it, Mike, because you were talking about, obviously, the significance of employee support for Guard and Reserve. Would you take a few moments, though, to talk about the significance and the impact, the importance of Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation a little bit more than what you had done earlier? Why is that important? I know there's, and Victoria, you can jump in there, too.
Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation is kind of a microcosm of I think what's best in society, and that is we don't leave anybody behind. And that's really a kind of a motto, a credo of military service, and specifically the Marine Corps, which is the culture that I was in. And it's a very intense, I got your back. As long as I'm around, I'm going to keep an eye on you. And I trust you to keep an eye on me. The foundation, the idea behind the foundation is kind of an extrapolation of that culture, and that is if you served in the Marine Corps and you have a kid, this foundation's going to work to provide a scholarship or financial opportunity so your kids can go to school and pursue their dreams. And what better gift is there than education, the doors that it can open up, the lives that it can change. So that's what it's all about. It's nobody's left behind, including the kids. And you join the Marine Corps, it's a tough commitment, and it's a long commitment. And you fill out, you provide the government with a blank check that's cashable right up to your life, and so that's a big deal. And when you get out, the foundation says, we're gonna help your kids. We're going to help them achieve their dreams. And so it's a wonderful thing. And I know I've talked to folks from a lot of different services, and I think it's unique among the Marine Corps, probably because the Marine Corps is a smaller service than the other branches. I know individual military units and the other services have foundation scholarships or scholarship foundations, but the Marine Corps, I think, is the only service-wide one. So that's another cool element of it. And again, it goes back to that nobody left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest thing that all of us have in common is the way the Phoenix community and the Arizona community wraps their arms around veterans groups, our military members, the Guard and Reserve. You know, they've had some really significant changes the last 2 years, last 20 years, when the towers fell and the response was swift. It became this huge change for everybody, where, no longer was it just the active duty force. We were augmented by the Guard and Reserve. And, that meant that these people who were only doing 2 days a month and 2 weeks out of the year had to leave their home and family and go. And just go. And I think it was a huge change for them. But the way the community rallies around our military and our veterans, that's critically important. That we rely on business donors, we rely on community support, individuals who believe in our organizations, know what it means that we're trying to do to help them heal. Because what we're talking about is with the Marine Corps Scholarship, if you can get your son and daughter a college education, that helps that veteran. That's one less worry that they have. The soldier's best friend. Oh my gosh, there's so many wonderful stories about how that helps the veterans heal, and the parade, how it helps the veterans heal. So I think because of what they go through in military service, helping them move beyond that when they're ready to come back to our society is critically important to all of us.
You mentioned gratitude earlier, and I think that's a big piece of it. I grew up very patriotic, still feel that way every time I say the pledge or I sing the anthem or I see a flag or even somebody in uniform. I'm so grateful. And I know not everybody feels that way, right? And so it's important for us as a community to celebrate those who protect us. You mentioned and touched on it just a bit, funding, so I want to go back to that in just a moment. I know Victoria's involvement because of your husband, of course, and Mike, you spoke to your time in service. Did you speak to yet can you tell us a little bit how you got involved? Do you have a military background?
Oh, yes, I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy during the Cold War. That was my era, was the Cold War era. But I was out and I wasn't in the reserves. And when Operation Desert Storm hit, I went down and re-enlisted because I just wanted to come back and see what I could do to help. It was BK before kids, so I was still, ready to go. And through that, I was able to produce some training videos on, the warfare of making paint because I was in the broadcast journalism realm. That's what I did. I worked for the Armed Forces Radio and Television Service. And then when I left that, I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I kind of got to HAV, Honoring America's Veterans, through the back door because the VA had some changes in leadership and felt the parade wasn't as essential as it really truly is in the Phoenix community. And we really literally had to save the parade when they walked away. And had we not had corporate donors that supported us, like APS and University of Phoenix and USAA and Humana and Intel and all the others, we would not have a parade in Phoenix. We are reliant on their support and any grants that we can get and funding. So, and in exchange, they get into this big, beautiful event that attracts 45,000 people. We have speaker towers. One of the things we're proudest of is we have speaker towers all along the route, the most speaker towers of any parade, Pizza Fiesta Bowl, the Electric Light Parade, because our veterans and the military service and the units we get, they deserve an extra bit of education. So we're really about educating people. We hold an essay competition, and the essay winners from high school get to ride in the parade on a fire truck. We have a Veterans Grand Marshal campaign called Honor Our Heroes. We select 7 veterans from each era of conflict from World War II to present day. And it's all about educating. The more our people and our our community knows about who these people are, what they've done to defend our freedoms, brings it right back to what you're saying. We appeal to the patriots out there. We really do. Those who have a patriotic spirit, they love us. And I think that's what all of us do. The camaraderie, the healing, the patriotism. And I think that makes our country better. It's not patriotism isn't a divisive issue. It's emotional, spiritual healing.
I agree.
Kind of spirit.
That's how I've always seen it. We've gotten to talk to folks from Prescott a handful of times on the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation show, and they've got their parade as well. And I get just like, saluting to not saluting, but holding my hand on my heart with the flag. I also grew up loving parades, and it's been years since I've gone. Now I'm motivated to attend. What time of year is it Veterans Day?
Yep.
Yes.
We do the parade on Veterans Day, except when it falls on a Sunday, because we use North Phoenix Baptist Church as our staging ground. Yeah. So it is based on the significance of the signing of the armistice, which ended World War I, which was the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, which created Veterans Day. Mm-hmm. That's really how we got to Veterans Day. So we start our parade at 11 a.m. on November 11th.
That's what we do. That's great history.
So I just have to tell you that I support the Veterans Day parade in many ways, but also Veterans Day because I had my daughter on Veterans Day.
Oh, that's right. I think you told that on another show.
I have to tell you. Okay, so Marine Corps birthday is November 10th. I was huge and ready to go. And I had a bunch of Marines at my house, and they were ready to take me to the hospital for Marine Corps birthday. And my husband said to me, I don't know if I could share the Marine Corps birthday with our daughter. And I was like, this is terrible. So we had our big barbecue. And then about 10:30 at night, a whole bunch more Marines showed up, and they were ready to eat and barbecue and have more drinks and whatnot. So we ate again. And it's spicy food, and we're up late, and everyone finally leaves, 12 o'clock, let's say. About 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, I was like, something isn't right here. I don't feel well.
It's not that I'm pregnant and I might be ready to deliver.
And I didn't drink anything because I was ready to have, my baby. Anyway, so lo and behold, by 6:37, I knew something was up. And I wake my husband and I'm like, it's time to go. And he's like, go where? And he's all like crazy tired, Anyway, so we go to the hospital and they're like, ma'am, your water has broken. You are being admitted. This baby's coming. And I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, first baby takes all day. And I'm watching football and I'm reading the paper and I'm waiting. Anyway, it gets to be closer to the evening time and whatnot. And I was like, okay, now we got to have this baby on Veterans Day. Like, what's going on? Anyway, she's born at 10:40 at night. I'm a tax lawyer, so the 10:40 was really significant. So all things fell into place. But yeah, so Angelina's birthday, she is our Veterans Day baby. And every year we celebrate and honor our veterans, honor our daughter, of course, because she's a teenager now. And we did do the Prescott Parade last year. And we walked in the Prescott Parade, and she spent her 13th birthday walking in a Veterans Day parade. So we're very proud of her for giving her birthday to honor our veterans. Yeah. And to something you all were talking about, but the gratitude you receive from people who have been a part of these charities, these organizations, attending the parade is immense. And that's why we do it. That's why we volunteer. I've been volunteering most of my life for all kinds of things. I just love it. I feel it's my passion to give back to others and serve my community. But it's amazing the feedback that you receive. And that's what you do it for. You do it for knowing you're helping somebody else. Even if it's one person changing one life, it's just impactful.
Paula, you spoke to the theme that you're hearing. I'm hearing another theme, and it's legacy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So with the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation and saying to the Marine families, listen, we're going to help your kids succeed, right? You served us. We're going to help you. That's legacy. Same thing with even just your story about your daughter being born on Veterans Day and how you honor that. She and your other daughter will go on and all the volunteering that you've done, like it just, that continues. Even just I'm not from my uncles are military. My dad wasn't able to serve. But just growing up, knowing and participating in parades and, just being a patriotic family that way, that's how these this love continues for our country, and it is inclusive. So, Paula, thank you for answering the question around how you guys are funded. You rely on corporate and individual donations.
Correct.
Solely? There's no government funding?
No government funding at this point in time. Sometimes, if we're able, we'll apply for the Arizona State Department of Veteran Services has a grant, and it just depends on what's happening in the year, if we can get that or not.
Sure.
But they tend to fund some of the veterans in need, and we don't do that. So we try to make sure we're getting from the organizations that have that different focus.
Yes.
So.
And how can, because we're Business Radio X, right? And this is typically B2B radio, how can business owners and corporate leaders get involved? Is it as easy as going to the website? Or?
Yep. It's as easy as going to the website. We have all our sponsorship levels and benefits right there. We are looking for more what we call, and of course, we break it down by awards and medals. So we have a Medal of Honor level. We have a Purple Heart level. We have a Bronze Star level. So, and it just depends. But the nice thing for a business owner, it talk about a bump in their, their boost, their exposure, because there are 45,000 people, and then we're covered live all morning long on most of the stations and radio. We do these other events throughout the year. So the Grand Marshals campaign gets to help tie a business to that. The essay competition gets to help tie a business to that. So they do get a huge bump, and we have an awards banquet, and we have VIP seating at the parade. And, so there's these fun things that you get to do. And some of the compliments we get is so funny, because I had one person who really didn't know that I was the coordinator of the parade. And she goes, we were riding to another event, and she goes, I took my kids to that Veterans Day parade in downtown Phoenix. She goes, I have to tell you, that was so patriotic and so touching and so moving. It just made me want to hug a veteran. And she goes, do you know about that?
You said, you can hug me. Bring it in, girl.
Exactly. I go, here's your hug.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she was like, what?
Yeah, exactly. But, again, it gets down to that. These things cost money, unfortunately. There's so many safety issues that you have to have when you put on a large scale special event. Or the Marine Corps Scholarship, there's money out for the event management you have to pay. We have porta-johns, we have, the barricades, we have the speaker towers, we have helium for the large balloons, we have flyers, information flyers about street closures, and water for the entries, and now it's going to be hand sanitizer in addition,
Right.
Maybe spreading out the VIP section a little bit more. There are costs associated, and unfortunately, they're not inexpensive. They do cost money, but the good news is for 25 years, and actually since 2013, so what is that, 8-9 years, the community has solely paid to put on this parade. So we thank the Phoenix community. There are 515,000 veterans, I think, in Maricopa County, 600,000 in the state. They have people's lives that they touch every day. They're critically important to us. So please go to our website and donate. We'd love to have you.
And the website is?
www.honoringamericasveterans.org.
Yeah. So you had mentioned how many military families we have here in Arizona. And I mentioned before you guys got here to Mike that Sean Banzoff was back on with us. He is the ASU veteran coordinator for the Pat Tillman Center. And he's a new author. But I was celebrating with Mike because Mike and Victoria introduced me to him. And I said, when you write your book, come back. So he was on yesterday. Just real quick, a shout out for Sean. It's the 5 L's, the practical guide for helping loved ones heal after trauma.
Oh.
Again, he is serving as the senior military advocate for ASU. He was a former police sergeant, an associate pastor, university campus minister, a U.S. Army platoon sergeant from 1990 to 2012. And his wife, he'll speak to how important that role that she played in helping him heal and make that transition. You spoke to, obviously, our service dogs that help with PTSD and all that. But I mention that because something I learned from Sean, in addition to just having an incredible connection, is that ASU is, I believe he said, the largest, maybe you guys will correct me, has the most servicemen and women at a university in the country, or is right up there among the top 3 ranking ones. Does anybody know that stat? I'm probably totally butchering it, but I thought that was fascinating.
They do have a strong presence, and they have been volunteering in the parade.
Oh, good.
Yeah, not the Pat Tillman, but there's a veterans group there, so it would be nice for us to get with the Pat Tillman.
So make that introduction. That's why I mentioned it. That's the magic happens here. That's what it is. We talked about that, Mike, didn't we?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So happy to make that introduction. And he was saying, it takes a team, and that's what I hear each of you saying. That it really, I said, how is it that ASU came to be this hub for secondary folks in secondary education wanting to further their education and also serving in the military? He's like, we make it happen. We celebrate them, we honor them, we respect them, we give them a safe place to land, all the things, again, that each of you are talking about. So I will most definitely make that introduction. You'll find he is just very amazing, like all of you. All right. So I asked how we can get involved from a corporate perspective, and you take individual donations as well.
Yes.
So family foundations and those sorts of things can help support too.
They have. We had a foundation that has asked to remain anonymous, but they gave us money because they loved what we were doing. We've had other groups like hold events and give us the funds off of that. So it helps. We're very on the charity navigator scale. We're like a platinum level. So we meet all the guidelines and thresholds for that because I think it's important. One of the things, the other thing I do is I write the Veterans Voice column for the Arizona Republic.
Speak to that, yes.
Yeah. So the good news about that is it gives us a lovely platform. The Arizona Republic has long been supportive of our veterans and youth in education, the newspaper and education support. But so we've partnered with them through that. But unfortunately, also through that column is you hear complaints about nonprofits that don't get those certifications and are, not as trustworthy with the funds and management. And so you have to be careful. I think it's important to look as a business owner for people that do have certifications like through Charity Navigator and others. There's several out there, and getting that certification is important. The other thing I'd like to dovetail on with what you said is that it takes 300 volunteers the day of the event to move the water, make sure everything gets set up. We're setting up tents. We're chalking off spaces in the parking lot of the church the morning of, and then destaging and getting people off the street. The city allows us to close the streets from 11 to 1. So we've got to hit that mark and make sure that it flows, it moves, we get everybody out of there on time, and we can open it back up for businesses because it is impactful for businesses. It's a 2-hour lunch window that they're kind of stuck inside if they're on the route. So some of them have been smart and taken advantage of it, and they'll get brats or whatever and serve them in their parking lot, which is smart. Yeah. It's, again, that wrapping your arms around the Phoenix community, the business community, the volunteers that we get, the other nonprofits that are a part of the parade. It makes a difference. Yeah. It just makes a difference.
Victoria, how is funding handled for the organization that you're representing today? And I would imagine there's a lot of volunteers at play as well, or no?
So we are funded by the community. We accept donations from corporations, same thing, corporate donors. We also have, in the past few months, fortunately, we are receiving legacy donations from estates. And those are coming in, and it's pretty amazing because they kind of come out of nowhere, meaning we're not aware of them until the estates are being settled, and then we're receiving a check from that veteran family, and they're donating to our foundation to support our program. So that's been fascinating. We do not collect financials from our veterans. We do not charge them. And so from start to finish, between locating the dog and paying we employ our trainers, veterinary expenses and whatnot, we average about $5,000 per veteran per training.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have follow-up training. So 2 years after they complete the program, they come back in, they do follow-up training. We have some training videos on our website. So we are basically self-funded. So we're also out in the community receiving donations. We have a clay shoot that is happening Saturday the 29th at Ben Avery. That's one of our events that we annually hold. We had a golf tournament also this year. And interestingly enough, we filled the amount we were allotted for the golf. And that was great because people were outside. They were thrilled to be able to do something. It was so cold in the morning. I don't golf, but I went there to help set up and support. But we were able to at least have that event, because without the event and the community, and like I said, the clay shoot this weekend coming up, it gets difficult to be able to fund our teams, is what we call them. We have trainers in different parts of the state, including down in Tucson, Sierra Vista. So it's not just Phoenix metro area that we train our veterans and our pups to do their thing. And so we're always obviously also looking for help and donations and support. And when we have events, our graduations are really cool to attend, because you can see how well the veterans transitioned, and also their service dog. And fascinating, when I got on the board and I came to my first graduation, we have a location out in Peoria. We actually own a building where we're able to house our staff, do trainings, our graduation. It's a nice place for them to know where they can come if they need support. In any event, I was fascinated because we had veterans still from Vietnam in the class that I was present with that had just finally gotten their support dog that was helping them because life still wasn't right for them. Somalia. So some of the older different engagements that the U.S. has been involved with, that sometimes people, they're not at the forefront and they're older and they kind of, I don't want to say they forget, but they don't realize there's still a great need for some of those veterans to get the support and help that they need. And the other fascinating thing was, they're not all German Shepherds and Labs that are in this program. There's white little fluffy dogs that make it through the program, and they're interviewed and they have to do their thing, and the trainers have to make sure that they can fulfill the class. But I was fascinated when this cute little fluffy thing was on stage, and I thought, wow, I guess I kind of stereotype dogs, but you can't do that, because it's that connection and it's what that dog is being put into service for, and whether the trainer believes that that dog and the veteran can bond and have that connection. So that was something kind of cool. So I actually went to them. Obviously, our radio listeners can't see, but I went to our board and our staff and I said, we have a lot of big dogs on our advertisements. Where's the little dogs? Well, anyway, then they handed them to me and they said, we do have them. They're on some of our materials, the little dogs. Because I think in our minds, we just think of those big dogs as the end all be all, but it's not true. So if there's a connection, if we're at a rescue and that dog is set for placement and the veteran connects, it's great. And we are saving, like I said, pulling those dogs out of shelters. And I love that. Having my own rescue dog, they can be a lot of work on the end of giving them a home and a place and keeping them from euthanasia or continuing to live in shelters. But when that connection is made and we can pull them out and then get our veterans to the point where they're functioning better, they're feeling better, and they're back out in society, and not forgetting, like Paula said, we've got to continue to honor and recognize that conflicts may end, but their inner conflicts may not have ended. And so we have to continue to support that and help and be a part of our entire community. I think Arizona I love my state. I've traveled a lot of places. I've lived in other places, and I keep coming home. And so I feel like we are a wonderful community for many things, but we do honor our veterans and do a lot of support for our veteran community and their families. Because one thing that when I was first introduced to some of these charities was, you're part of this too. You lived this. You were with your partner. My dad was in Korea. My stepdad was in the Air Force. So I have like a lot of military all over in my family. And but most people do. There's a connection somewhere.
For sure.
And so what happens to the families? What happens to the spouses or the children or the grandchildren? They see the effects of all these different things. And so I think that's great that Phoenix has put into place so many different opportunities. And volunteer. We will accept any volunteers. If people are interested in volunteering for Soldier's Best Friend, it's soldiersbestfriend.org. We would love the opportunity to meet people who are interested in coming aboard and helping us with our events and with our teams. And I know Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation is near and dear to my heart. I've been on the committee for about 9 years, chairing a gala that can't seem to happen yet, but maybe next year. In 2020, we're now set for our gala. But again, the children, we're assisting the children. We're attempting to give an education support to children whose parents who served. And if you ever look at the statistics on what military members earn, and then they get out and they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay for college for their kids. Mm-hmm. And the post 9/11 bill for education is not easily passed to a child. It's more easily passed to a spouse, if that. But the veteran needs to use that for themselves. They've got to get their educations up and going so they can get out there in the community. So our scholarship is helpful in the sense that people are still in need of financial aid support. And because we're a scholarship, the children aren't repaying any of the funds that are being dispersed. So we're proud of that. So we're not burdening them with the student loan debt.
Right.
And my mind might have wandered if you already answered this, but the funding then for Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation, either Mike or you could speak to this, it's all based on donations.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah. There's no funding outside of that.
Nope, it's donations. We apply for grants just like all other charities. Mm-hmm. But no, it's all self-funded in the community. Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation is actually out of Virginia, the state of Virginia. But we are a 60-year next year foundation. So 60 years of reputation, 60 years of educating children, Marines and Navy corpsmen attached to the Marine unit, and clergy. So that is a very long-standing, when you talk about Charity Navigator and looking back at the reputation, there's a lot of data there and a lot of kids who've received their education, a lot of funds that have been raised, and a lot of success stories. And our graduation rate is well over the 90%. So
impressive.
Yeah.
And not only just for universities, but also trade schools as well. It's important to mention that. I know we mentioned it earlier. We're just about time on our time for today. It goes very quickly, but I want to make sure we speak to ESGR as well. That organization functions a little bit differently, doesn't it, as far as where funding comes from, that sort of thing. So, Mike, can you speak to that just a bit?
You bet. Well, it's part of the Department of Defense, but it's run almost entirely by volunteers. And it came out of the Vietnam War. And there was a realization that the commitment, again, of our citizen soldiers, which dates back to the 1600s in this country. This was the organization where, somebody would volunteer to go through military training to protect their village, from whatever threats were out there in the wilderness, whether it be, an angry Native American tribe or a group of foreigners that wanted to, take over the farmland. I mean, there were a lot of existential threats back in the day, and this was the community's response to protect the community. And so it's got a rich heritage in this country, and it continues today. And one thing we didn't touch upon was the impact COVID has had. And there were more Arizona National Guardsmen mobilized last year than at any time since World War II. Mm-hmm. I don't have the statistic, but it's probably up to 60 or 70% of the Guard had extra duty last year. And I just want to tell a quick vignette. There's a Captain Lancaster. I think she just got promoted to major. She's a helicopter pilot out at Papago. Her job is kind of like a finishing school for Black Hawk helicopter pilots assigned to the Guard in Arizona. So that's a full-time job, okay? Well, COVID hits. She's got to run medical supplies and medical personnel up to the Indian communities in the north that are just seeing horrific numbers of COVID and don't have the physical structure to deal with it. So the Guard comes in and does really a large airlift to help those communities out. Then wildfire season rolls around, and she's responding to wildfires, dropping water on fires in Arizona, and then over to California. Yeah, the vaccinations start. She's moving the vaccinations all over the state and the personnel to deliver that all over the state to the far-flung corners of our rural areas. On top of this, she's got a 2-year-old at home, and her husband's in the Guard, and he gets mobilized in the summer to deal with a civil unrest. So they had to bring the mom in from out of state to take care of the kid. But that's the kind of stress that our Guard and reservists have been through the last 18 months or so since COVID got hot. The Guard's that first line of defense when people really need help, whether it's a natural disaster or COVID, you name it. They're the first responders that come in, and they leave their day jobs and they go out and they respond to those incidents. And it's pretty remarkable. And going back to Major Lancaster, so in February, you might remember these hikers that got lost up near Sedona. There was a big snowstorm, and they got trapped in a cave for 3 days. Well, it was her helicopter that found them.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And so she had a busy year.
Yes.
But that's an example of what our citizen soldiers have gone through in the last year or so. So ESGR's role is to make sure that they understand their roles and responsibilities and protections under the USERRA laws, that govern Guard and reservists, and make sure employers understand those laws. And when there's conflict, come in as a mediator. And their mediation rate, when these rare instances come up of, there's disagreements about employment, it's that number is well above 90%. So it goes back to what we're all talking about. It's kind of reducing stress and making life better for our veterans, because they take on a lot. And especially the Guard and reservists these days, they've got, not only do they have a civilian job and career to maintain, they've got families and children and spouses and relatives. They've got that world that they have to manage. And on top of that, they've got a military career that they're trying to manage. So that's where ESGR comes in and supports the employers that support them, and make sure that somebody's got their back, and they're not out there alone. There's other people that are willing to come out and support them as that team. So I want to just end. Thank you for
my pleasure.
allowing us to come in and talk about these different organizations and what's going on there. And I would just say to the public that's listening out there, if you're not familiar with the organizations, do jump online, visit the websites, learn a little bit about it. And there's nothing better than volunteering for a group that makes a difference in people's lives. It's very rewarding. And thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you,
so
Karen.
pleased. I always love meeting new people and finding out the depth and the breadth of what you're doing. And clearly, you yourself are a legacy for Arizona. I didn't realize that till I started reading your bio. I'm like, holy cow, Mike. Impressive. Excited to learn all about you and make the connections that we can. ESGR, there's an Arizona link.
ESGR.mil/Arizona.
Okay. Say that again, ESGR.
.mil.
Oh, okay.
For military.
For military.
military,
Okay.
yep.
Well, you all know
Not
that.
all, not as common.
Right. And then Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. What is the Arizona link for that?
It's
MCSF, right?
mcsf.org and then /Arizona campaign.
Okay, so you can get there from the national page.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been a pleasure. So exciting. Thank you, Mike, for always bringing us rich conversations with incredible people. And I have no doubt that I know I'll see you two again, but I'm sensing I'll get to see Paula in the future as well. You've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneur Center in Tempe. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business and military. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.